The Biden crime syndicate, next on One Nation. Hello, America. Welcome to One Nation. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Jacobs. Well, here we go again. We've been talking about the Biden crime syndicate for many years now. There's nothing new under the sun when it comes to that criminal. You know, a dear friend of mine, a dear friend of the people in the state of Wisconsin, Senator Ron Johnson, one of the great senators in the United States of America, he's been investigating the corruption within the Biden family, and there's a preponderance of evidence of guilt that goes all the way through Ukraine, Russia, Romania, and China. Even the House Oversight Committee has evidence that up to $20 million in payments from foreign partners of the Biden family has been going on with 20 different shell companies. He's been caught red-handed and guilty as all get out. Now, just recently, Devon Archer, a business partner of Hunter Biden, exposed the lies of Joe Biden about not talking to Hunter's business partners. Now, by the way, it isn't just Democrats who are guilty of all this collusion stuff with foreign countries and making money based upon their political power. I mean, there are a number of Republicans who have done the same thing, but the point is the man in power right now has been corrupt for many, many years. Now, just a little while back, in fact, on the day that I am not a crook, Richard Nixon resigned on August 9th. He did that in 1974. But on August 9th, of 2023, Peter Doocy of Fox News was down in New Mexico. And he asked President Biden this question. Listen to what he asked and listen to the response.
We got a first-of-its-kind reaction to that testimony. Nobody has asked President Biden yet about these allegations from a former Hunter Biden business associate that Hunter would call his dad, then the vice president, and put him on speakerphone to chat with his business associates. So at the conclusion of this event, I had a chance, at the president's invitation, he waved his son over to ask him. There's this testimony now where one of your son's former business associates is claiming that you were on speakerphone a lot with them, talking business. Is that what?
I never talk business with anybody. And I knew you'd have a lousy question.
Well, why is that a lousy question?
Because it's not true.
Thank you, Mr. President. And so he wanted to talk about the transition to a green economy. He did not want to talk about that, but it does now conflict with the sworn testimony of Devon Archer. Devon Archer went under oath to talk about these speakerphone calls. Some of the Democrats that came out of that room where they were listening in private said that the president was just talking about the weather, but he's saying that they didn't talk at all.
Now, this is something else, people. Joe Biden has been caught with lie upon lie upon lie when it comes to the collusion with his son Hunter, his brother Jim, and other Biden family members. Now, seriously, going back to when he was vice president with Ukraine, Romania, China, Russia, and latest news is possibly Latvia, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So 4 years ago, the very same Peter Doocy asked the very same question to the very same old Joe Biden. Listen to what he had to say 4 years ago.
Earlier today, he did talk to the media about these unfounded claims about him and his son. There is no evidence to these claims, and he had a lot to say about it. Take a listen.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
And so how do you know?
Let's talk about, here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question, why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened? That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump. Trump's doing this because he knows I'll beat him like a drum. And he's using the abuse of power and every element of the presidency to try to do something to smear me. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
Oh, boy, did Peter Doocy hit a raw nerve 4 years ago. And now more and more evidence, a preponderance of evidence is pointing the finger at the collusion, the corruption of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, James Biden, and the Biden crime syndicate family. This is unbelievable. And did you see what he did? He pointed the finger at Donald Trump, which we're going to talk about here in a bit. But for the rest of the story, we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to One Nation, my fellow liberty-loving Americans. Now, this is interesting because you heard in that last part where Biden, knowing that Doocy was asking a question of corruption, then pointed the finger at Donald Trump and said, he's the one you should be looking into. He was making a reference to a phone call that Donald Trump had with the new president of Ukraine by the name of Zelensky. That was back in 2019. Well, in September 25th, of 2019, Donald Trump was meeting with President Zelensky. And I want you to hear this clip because we're going to walk through part of the 30-minute phone call to expose Joe Biden's lying. Here goes.
President Zelensky, have you felt any pressure from President Trump to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
I think you read everything. So I think you read text. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be involved to democratic, open elections of USA. No, you heard that we had, I think, good phone call. It was normal. We spoke about many things, and so I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
In other words, no pressure.
Mr.
President Zelensky, do you?
Because you know what? There was no pressure. And you know there was, and by the way, you know there was no pressure. All you have to do is see it, what went on the call. But you know that. But you could ask the question, and I appreciate the answer. Go ahead.
President Zelensky.
Would you like President Zelensky to do more on Joe Biden and investigate?
No, I want him to do whatever he can. This was not his fault. He wasn't there. He's just been here recently. But whatever he can do in terms of corruption, because the corruption's massive. Now, when Biden's son walks away with millions of dollars from Ukraine and he knows nothing, and they're paying him millions of dollars, that's corruption. When Biden's son walks out of China with $1.5 billion in a fund, and the biggest funds in the world can't get money out of China, and he's there for one quick meeting and he flies in on Air Force Two, I think that's a horrible thing. I think it's a horrible thing, but I'm going far beyond that. I know the president, and I've read a lot about Ukraine. I've read a lot about a lot of countries. He wants to stop corruption. He was elected, I think, number one on the basis of stopping corruption, which unfortunately has plagued Ukraine. And if he could do that, he's doing really the whole world a big favor. And I think he's going to be successful.
Did you hear that? You hear that? You see, this is interesting because we've talked on previous shows how there's been a permanent coup to destroy Donald Trump. And as you're watching this show, they're still trying to destroy him with a fourth indictment with a corrupt DA down in Georgia and a corrupt DA up in New York City. These are George Soros district attorneys. They're absolutely anti-constitutional, lawless individuals who want to destroy President Trump during a presidential campaign. But I want you to recognize something. When Donald Trump was talking to him, he was in essence saying, look, there's corruption in Ukraine. I want you to find out more about this. So there was a phone call. That's the one that Nancy Pelosi says, you know what? You're going to be impeached for this horrible phone call that you made. So what did Donald Trump do? He released the transcripts. And what it showed was, I'm going to read to you a few lines from this transcript. This is from July 25th, 2019, 30-minute phone call. The president says, congratulations on a great victory. Zelensky says, to tell you the truth, we're trying hard to work here because we wanted to drain the swamp here in our country. You were a great teacher for us on that. He says, I want to investigate. As the president of Ukraine, I am going to get into the investigations. They will be done openly and candidly. Then President Trump responds, good, because I heard you had a prosecutor, remember that prosecutor, who was very good and he was shut down, and that's really unfair. The way they shut your very good talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution and a lot of would find out about it. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. Then Zelensky responds, I want to tell you about the prosecutor. First of all, I understand and I'm knowledgeable about the situation. And then he goes on to say, and we're going to look into it. So here's the thing that bothered Joe Biden and all the corrupt individuals in association to this. They recognized that the present president of the United States was going to expose the corruption, the collusion of the second most powerful man in the United States, Vice President Joe Biden, working with his son and his son's business partners to make money off the powerful influence of the name Joe Biden. Now, it's interesting because more and more information, photographs, and detailed information and testimony by business partners and IRS agents who were investigating Hunter Biden's tax returns, they're now actually showing us the preponderance of evidence of guilt. Let me show you a pic here that was from December 6, 2015. And please remember this, December 6, 2015. There's Joe Biden with his aides on Air Force Two on his way to Ukraine. He's going to be dealing with what's happening in Ukraine, and he happens to have with him a gentleman by the name of Amos Hochstein. He's a State Department envoy, and you know what his expertise is? Energy issues. Now, here he is photographed with Joe Biden on December 6, 2015, on his way to a meeting with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Now, this is very interesting. He says he's not going there for explicit specific information in relationship to energy and or energy companies. Please keep this in mind. But he happens to bring along with him an energy expert that he never told us about. Now, I want you to hear Joe Biden the following day tell President Poroshenko the story about how he needs to fire Viktor Shokin. Now, I have to admit something. When you start dealing with dates and names, it can be incredibly confusing. But I want you to know the basics, because right now, as I speak, more and more information, incriminating information is coming out that is pointing the finger not just to Hunter Biden's laptop, but pointing the finger all the way to the White House, to Joe Biden, to the Biden crime syndicate family and their cover-up of this. And that's why they want to destroy President Trump, because he was aware of it and he wanted the prosecutor to actually expose what was going on when it comes to energy in Ukraine. And Hunter Biden was the major player along with his papa. So let's listen to Joe Biden bragging about something. Here goes.
I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired.
Well, son of a biscuit. Well, he got fired. Now, this is interesting. Remember this. He got fired. You got to ask yourselves, who got fired? And what was this quid pro Joe thing going on? Joe Biden, through the power of his vice presidency, in essence, got the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, fired. And therefore, he gave Ukraine $1 billion. Now, Shokin was appointed as a prosecutor starting in early of 2015. It's interesting because he had a phone call with the president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, about 2 months after his meeting over in Ukraine. And Poroshenko said this, even though there was no evidence of corruption, I've asked him to resign. Joe Biden responded, great. And then the $1 billion was released. Now, this Poroshenko, according to Biden, wasn't doing his job. That's very interesting. What was his job? He was actually investigating a natural gas company by the name of Burisma. Now you may say, Burisma, what's that have to do with the Biden family? Well, the owner was Mykola Zlochevsky. He was a corrupt Ukrainian oligarch. Ukraine's full of that, by the way. Hunter Biden joined with that Mykola, that corrupt Ukrainian oligarch, on the Burisma board of directors in the spring of 2014 to the tune of $1 million a year. And he had no natural gas experience. He simply had the name Biden. And he went with his father to Ukraine, and he hung around with business partners in Ukraine. And here they are golfing. It takes balls to play golf. All right, producer Kayla, they got a picture of the Three Stooges. This is the one I wanted. Here you have Hunter Biden, you have Joe Biden, and on the other side, you have Devon Archer, who was a business partner with Hunter Biden, who was Ukrainian gas executive. You see, Biden lied about this. Joe Biden lied about this. I didn't know any of the business partners. I never talked to any of the business partners. I never had any business with them. Well, now more and more people from business associates and IRS agents are pointing the finger at the culpability and the guilt of Joe Biden. Now, Devon Archer just recently had an interview with Tucker Carlson, and he also was interviewed with the House Oversight Committee. Now, he told Congress and Tucker Carlson that he joined Vice President Biden for many D.C. dinners in the spring of 2014 and in April 2015 with Hunter's business partners in Kazakhstan, Russia, Ukraine. And then in 2015, Hunter Biden, Devon Archer, and Burisma CEO, that corrupt oligarch Zlochevsky, they met in Dubai. And Devon Archer said he got a phone call from Papa. Now, by the way, every time, now Biden says he never talked to anybody, but all of a sudden the evidence comes out that he talked with people. He sent his lawyers to the microphone and other Democrat puppets for him, and they said he was just simply talking to his business partners about the weather and how the Green Bay Packers were going to do in the fall. I just made up the Green Bay Packers part, but he actually did say they talked about the weather and other just little trivial things. You and I both know we're not that stupid. He insults us. Now, Hunter told Tucker Carlson that Burisma executive by the name of Polshatsky, he attended a 25 dinner with Biden, and he said, in essence, the fact that we can use the Joe Biden name gives us clout to be able to achieve our business dealings when it comes to Burisma, the natural gas company that Hunter was making $1 million a year with. Now, by the way, Devon Archer tells us that Hunter Biden and his papa were on the phone 20 different times with foreign agents, foreign clients, and it was enough to make them do business. It's just so blatantly obvious what's going on here. In fact, in 2014, Burisma, when Joe Biden's investigators looked into more of Burisma, right, because they knew they were making a lot of money, they found that there was a picture of Joe Biden on the Burisma website along with Devon Archer. They told Burisma, take it down. They didn't want this information to be out there. Now, there's overwhelming evidence of the president's interaction with foreign power associates. 12 days after joining his dad, after Hunter joined his dad on Air Force Two for an official trip to Beijing, communist China, right? The Wall Street Journal reported that Hunter Biden and Devon Archer, they started a company in Shanghai called BHR Partners. It's an equity investment fund. It's controlled by the Bank of China, and the Bank of China is controlled by the CCP, the Communist Party, and dictator Xi. Now, this is very interesting because in 2009, Hunter Biden, Devon Archer, and Christopher Heinz. Christopher Heinz, you mean the ketchup people? Yeah, he's the stepson of the climate czar, the former Secretary of State John Kerry, right? That's Archer's Yale classmate. They actually created a business called the Rosemont Seneca. They joined with the Bank of China, the CCP, to create this. So Rosemont Seneca creates this BHR. And they sold drone and F-15 technology to China. They were making millions while they were giving technology to the communist Chinese. Now, there's another catch to this, which the media ignores. There's another co-founder of this BHR Partners out of Shanghai, China. His name is Jonathan Lee. Archer testified that Joe Biden and Lee actually met together, not just having a handshake and a photo op, but they met for coffee. And they discussed business activities in relationship to China. Now, I think it's very interesting that Hunter Biden, through that company, arranged an almost $4 billion deal for Chinese computers, for Chinese communists with cobalt mines in the Congo. Cobalt mines, you mean, Jake, you mean the stuff they need for electric vehicles? You mean because of this whole horrible climate change stuff that's happening, according to Joe Biden, it's existential, that they're making millions and billions of dollars by purchasing a cobalt mine from slave labor in the Congo? This is absolutely ridiculous. We need to be waking up to what's going on here. You and I remember back in October of 2020, right before the election, the New York Post had a headline, right? How did that headline go? Oh, Biden's secret emails, dealing with the laptop, dealing with corruption, going all the way to Joe Biden as vice president. And the media censored all this. Twitter and Facebook and CNN and the BBC, they all began to say, oh, it's conspiracy lies. It's nothing but lies. It's a way to get President Trump elected. I got to tell you something. They're lying big time. The author of the book, Red Handed, Peter Schweitzer, I want you to hear what he says as the walls close in on the Biden crime syndicate. Here goes.
It's going to be very hard, Jesse. Look, the walls are closing in. First, you had the bank records that show that the money was being transferred. Now you have the testimony of business partners. Devon Archer is one. There are going to be others. And other than Joe Biden himself, Devon Archer is Hunter Biden's most important business partner. When Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, Devon Archer got a seat on the board as well. When Hunter Biden got that sweetheart deal with that Chinese private equity fund and got put on the board, Devon Archer got the same slot. So he knows where everything is. And it's going to be very, very hard for the Democrats on this committee to do what they did with the whistleblowers, which is argue Joe Biden played no role. The evidence is there and their defenses keep shifting. And I think Joe Biden is in serious trouble.
Yeah, he's going to have to be able to put Joe Biden on phone calls, in meetings. He's going to have to talk about what people knew and when they knew it. What does it tell you now the White House is changing their defense strategy? It's no longer Joe didn't talk about business, is now Joe wasn't in business.
Yeah, we've been at this since 2018. They initially said there were no foreign deals. Then they shifted and said there might have been foreign deals, but the Bidens made no money. Then it became Joe Biden didn't know about any of the deals. Then it became Joe Biden didn't participate in any of the deals. And now it's that he was not in business with his son. Look, the implications for this are huge, Jesse. If you look at that 1023 form that the FBI released, if that document is true, that document reveals that one of the people that was at those meetings that heard the conversations about bribing the Bidens worked for President Zelensky. Who really wants to believe, if that meeting took place and that document is accurate, that that individual did not go and report to President Zelensky what he heard? And again, if that document is true, who wants to believe that President Zelensky and his administration have not used that as leverage over Joe Biden when it comes to negotiations on Ukraine policy? We may all have to start learning the Ukrainian word for compromise, because this is a very clear indication of how this has shaped this administration's policy towards Ukraine and also towards China.
Now, you see, this is very important here, people. We are told by Joe Biden when he ran for president not to worry about China. They're just business partner, with people in the world. We were told that, Ukraine, everything was kosher in Ukraine. And very interestingly enough, Hunter Biden goes to Ukraine and goes to China, right? And we find out now, as more and more evidence is coming out by business partners. Look at the most recent one. Hunter Biden's business partner used government posts to grease wheels at Latvian bank where Hunter Biden sought board seat. country upon country, corruption upon corruption. And I think it's interesting that well over $120 billion has been sent by Joe Biden to Ukraine as we speak. Something is rotten in Denmark and in Delaware, and we know it's the Biden crime syndicate. Now, this is what gets me about this whole thing is he's guilty as hell and free as a bird. Do you remember the non-friend of Barack Obama? Right? Bill Ayers, who was a Marxist calling for the destruction of the United States. He used to love to say, I was guilty as hell and free as a bird. America's a great country. Well, this is exactly indicative of the Biden family. They're guilty as hell, free as a bird. And every time some more information comes out about the Biden crime syndicate, what happens? Donald Trump has an indictment against him. In fact, the New American Magazine has here, no case, no matter, destroy Trump. No case, no matter, destroy Trump. And that's exactly what's happening. And sadly, there's Trump fatigue syndrome going on. Americans are tired of what's been happening to Donald Trump over and over again, incessantly since 2015. So we're at the point now in American history where we need to be engaged and involved in praying for Donald Trump, praying for true, authentic, conservative, American-loving Americans who will fight to save our republic under God. Get involved, stay active, and be aware of the corruption in the deep state, the deep swamp, and the Biden crime syndicate. So my fellow Americans, until we meet again, Godspeed to you, and God bless in the battles ahead.